Hi guys, hello, how are you? I hope you're doing so well. I am doing great. Thank you so much for asking. If you are new here, my name is Emily. Welcome, happy to have you. Today I am really excited. This is a very exciting video because we are making our first sweater of the season. It is finally fall here in New York. The weather dropped like 20 degrees overnight and I could not be happier because I love crispy, delicious fall weather. So I actually was not going to make this sweater. I had this idea a couple weeks ago because I'm starting to feel like in the mood to crochet again, but I'm also knitting a lot lately. And with the knitting, I'm doing like a lot of graph style knitting, like with words or pictures or something, and I've actually never done that before with crochet. So I thought, why don't I make something for like October, Halloween? And then I ordered my yarn, and by the time the yarn came in the mail, I completely changed my mind. I was like, this is kind of a corny idea, like I didn't like it anymore. And then before I gave up on it though, I posted a poll to my community page, which if you subscribe, you can see anything that I post to my community and you can participate in any of the polls. And I was so surprised because a lot of people voted to have this video be made. So I thought that was really exciting and I'm glad I asked because I almost just didn't make this at all. All of that being said, let's jump into the sweater video. And I started with the graphing, so let me just show you how I graphed it. I decided to graph this on my iPad. If you don't have an iPad, you could very easily just do this with graph paper. But if you do have an iPad, I thought I would just show you really quickly what my process was. So first things first, I downloaded a grid and I made sure it was the exact amount of stitches that I wanted to do. I want this sweater to fit kind of oversized and baggy. I'm gonna use a bigger hook than the yarn recommends, and also I am stitching about 10 or 15 extra stitches than I normally would. So I'm usually a medium, and instead of like 65 to 70 stitches, I'm gonna stitch 80. I usually do 70, so I'm stitching 80, which is 10 more, just to give it like that loose, baggy, casual feel. Work up a swatch and decide how many stitches you want, and then the graph just has to be as many blocks as stitches that you want for your panels. And this is just the front panel. Here on the grid I did 80 by 80. Because it was just naturally 80 blocks up, the grid that I downloaded, but I'm probably gonna add a few rows at the bottom and the top to make it more rectangular of a fit. And I'm doing this sweater in 2 panels and then adding the sleeves afterwards. After having the graph downloaded, I put it into Procreate, but again, if you're doing this on graph paper, obviously you just have the graph paper. So then I went and I wrote out the word spooky on the graph paper, just normal, and then with an overlay I went in and I made little X's in all the boxes where my sketch of the word hit. So then I just filled in all the little boxes, and each box represents a stitch. So I just filled in all the little boxes until it made up the whole word. And then for the little ghosties, I went ahead and I just inserted a clip art that I found on the internet. I sized it how I imagine it being sized, and then I did the same thing. I just put little X's to fill in the boxes of like the overall outline of the clip art. If you are capable of drawing even the most classic simple drawings, you could just draw it yourself. I'm a cheater. I copied it off clip art, and then that's literally it for the graph. So I did make a swatch of one of the letters. I made a swatch of the letter S just to make sure that the sizing looked right, because it can be kind of hard to imagine on a graph how big something is gonna be. And I liked the size of the S, I hope. I'm a terrible estimator. That's why sizing almost never comes out right for me, but I kind of have high hopes for this one. So The graph is done. I made a swatch, and now we're just gonna start the sweater. Okay, I'm using mostly all the same yarn except for the white. I'm using the 1 pound because I already had it. But for the orange, I got it in the color Curry with just the CraftSmart Value, which I like. It's squishy, it feels nice, it's easy to work with. And I like that the Curry is like a muted orange. And then just black for the base of the sweater. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that. I am hoping I can find a way to share my graph with you if you just wanted to use mine. So you could check out the description box below, and hopefully I figured that out. But if I look at my graph, I have 11 rows at the bottom of just black to kind of make a buffer before my first ghosty. And I'm gonna add the ribbing at the bottom at the very end. So I'm gonna do the panels first. I'm gonna chain 80 and I'm gonna do 10 rows, and then I lied 11 rows, and then we're gonna start with the mixing of the colors. Okay guys, so I did 5 rows and I vastly underestimated how big 5 rows was going to be. So I'm not going to do 80 rows, that would just be absolutely massive. I'm going to condense down to about 60 or 65 rows. So I'm actually going to go in right away with our first little pictograph ghosty. So the plan here is I am chaining 1 and turning my work, and then from here I'm just following the graph where each square equals a stitch. So I'm gonna go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29 stitches of black. And then on the 30th stitch, I'm going to switch to white. So I'm going to go ahead and do 29 stitches, and I will meet you where we switch to the white. Okay, so the ghost is going to be white. So I'm taking out my white yarn. And we could see here that I need to do 4 white stitches. So when going from right to left, I'm going to carry the yarn in the back. And then from going from left to right, it's going to be a little different, but I'll show you on the flip side. So I'm doing my 29th stitch right now, and I'm pulling up the black yarn, but I'm finishing with the white yarn. And then holding the black taut in the back. And then I'm going to do my 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. But I'm not going to finish the 4th with the white. I'm going to drop the white, pick up the black, and finish with the black yarn. Pull the white taut, and then I'm just going to finish across the row with the black yarn. And that is the beginning of our little ghost. So I'm going to go all the way down to the other side and then turn around and come back and show you how I do it when we're working on the wrong side. But what I'm going to do on my graph is I'm going to cross out the whole row. So I'm going to grab a color that's contrasting, like red, and I'm just going to go and cross out the entire row. Okay, and I'll meet you back in a bit for the next row. If we're looking at the graph here, I have to put 1 block of black over top of the white where we were before. So I'm just going to go over top of that white and do the first half of the single crochet. And then I need to drop, and this is always kind of weird on this side, on the wrong side. I don't know any tips or tricks, so if you do, let me know on how to make sure that none of the colors like cross over in a weird way. There probably is a way and I just don't know it, but I'm gonna finish off with the white like this, and then make sure everything's kind of taut. And then on this side, I'm not gonna carry the yarn underneath, because if I carry it underneath, you'll be able to see it on the other side. I'll show you what I mean. So if I do that, you can clearly see the black on the other side. So when working on the wrong side, I just let it hang. And this is kind of what you do when you're knitting, as long as I'm doing that correctly too. So I'm gonna let it hang. I need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not finish this stitch, and then pick up the black and drape it. This is kind of the tricky part. You don't want it too tight, but you don't want it too loose either. So I just kind of pull through, pull on that white. So that's a little too tight, so I'm just gonna loosen it, play with it. That's pretty good. And then continue across with the black. And that's the routine when working on the wrong side. So then if we look at our right side, we are starting to make some progress. Cute. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and just keep following the pattern back and forth until probably halfway up the ghosty, and then I will let you guys know how it's going. I finished the first ghosty. He's so cute. So now it is time to start the lettering, and we are going across the same way that we started with the ghosty, just 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 stitches of black, and then picking up the orange where the little X's are. So again, same exact process as when we did the ghost, but now we're just starting the letters.
On a factory belt, conveyed through the present to sometime when I dream again. In that brief period of darkness, without the light through which my eyes give, I hope those motion pictures remain.
Okay guys, kind of a weird angle here, but bear with me. So I've gone all the way back across. I'm currently at the little corner here, and you can already start to see the letters forming together, which is the most fun about these graphing projects, is when you can start to see it actually happening. So I just wanted to show you what the back looks like. When you go left to right and you carry the yarn instead of casing it in left to right, this is what it's gonna look like. It's not too tight so that it curves in, It's not too loose so that it's saggy, but loose would always be better because, oh fuck. When I go back right to left, the way that I case in the tail of yarn in the new stitches, I'm gonna case in this dragged yarn from the other way so that it ends up looking nice and clean, kind of like the ghosty does. So I'm gonna go from, can you tell I just burped? Okay, so I'm gonna go from right to left, and I'm gonna crochet all these black ones, but then I will show you what I mean by casing in these stitches.
Welcome to another day in the life of...
All right, so ghosty number one, spooky, loving it. Two ghosties because I want it definitely oversized. So I'm gonna just do the same little ghost, but he's flipped on its little y-axis. I don't know if that's right. But he's gonna be flipped facing the other way, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. And then I'll show you how we round out for the collar. But it's cute. I love the words. Everything's placed perfectly. All right, stop procrastinating. She's done. Well, obviously the graphing part is done, the front panel is done, and it came out very cute. I'm happy I went with both ghosties. Happy I stuck with my original plan. Just happy all around, and this is what the back looks like in case you were wondering. Yeah, so this is the front panel. I'm not gonna go any higher. So at this point, I just have to make the collar and show you guys how I carve out the collar. And then I've already done the very tedious back panel because it's just 80 stitches across, same size as the front, and then the same height as the front, but just obviously plain black. Literally the worst part about making this whole sweater because it's just back and forth. I spent like a whole day on this, a little ridiculous, but whatever. Okay, we're done with this. So this is the back panel, and I do have to carve out as well the neckline for this, but we are so very close. So let's just go over to the table and I'll show you how I plan for the neckline. I want to make a U by the neckline, and I'm gonna make this by doing a series of decreases. My panel again is 80 stitches across, so each half of the panel will be 40 stitches. So I am going to go ahead and crochet 38 stitches across, and we'll begin our decreasing from there. I am 2 stitches away from the middle, so at my 38th stitch, and I apologize, black is such a hard color to see. But to decrease, I'm just pulling up a loop, moving to the next stitch, pulling up another loop, and then pulling through all 3 loops. And then chain 1, turn the work. On the way back, I'm skipping over the first stitch of the row and placing the first crochet of that row into the second stitch, and then continuing across the row as per normal. And then just continuing this process until the neckline curves where you want it to and how you want it to. For me, that was 4 rows of decreasing, but it is different for everybody. Here is the right side finished. I ended up doing 4 rows of decreasing and 8 rows of straight back and forth to meet at my shoulder line for a seam. On the left side, everything is pretty much the same, except you want to make sure that all your rows are facing the same way. So this means you have to start in at the 40th stitch in the middle and decrease first, continuing right to left. And other than that, all of the counts should be exactly the same as the right side. For the back panel, I don't want it to dip deep like the front panel does, so I'm going to add a few more rows of straight back and forth until about the last row, and then I'm just doing decreasing row at the 34th stitch. So instead of going all the way to the middle, the 40th stitch, I'm going to decrease 34 stitches in just once so I can get a little bit of an angle, and then continuing up 1 more row to make sure they're exactly the same amount of rows, the front panel and the back panel. And now it's time to seam. So just put the panels together, wrong sides facing out. And to seam, I just place a single crochet row between both of the panels across the shoulders. Okay, ignore my slouched over scrunchy lines, but we are so close. Okay, so I've seamed up the sides, and so now it's basically a poncho. So let's put it on. Cute! Okay, well, I don't know if it's cute. You are seeing it before I am. I probably should have looked in the mirror first, but I'm assuming it's cute. It feels cute. So I have to decide how big I want the sleeves to be, because wherever we don't seam will end up being like how big and puffy the sleeve is. And obviously it's an oversized sweater, so the sleeves will also be oversized. You could make them small and like perfectly fitted, but that would be kind of weird. So you just kind of want to feel out what feels like it would be where the sleeve goes. I don't know how to explain it, but when you do it, you'll feel it, you'll know. I'm gonna mark it on the front. I don't have a marker on me, so I'm using a hair tie, and I'm just gonna put it through, pull it like this so that I know, and then I'm gonna count when I take it off, and then make sure I'm even on the front and the back, and then also just make sure I'm even on this side, the same amount of stitches. Yeah, that feels right. Okay, so I'm gonna seam it up on the sides and then come right back. Be right back, BRB, don't talk, stop talking. All the seams are done. We're seamed up at the sides, we're seamed up at the shoulders, we're seamed up in the back. Seams done, good to go. So now I'm gonna spend all night and probably most of tomorrow making these sleeves. And to do that, this hole here, just crochet around in a circle. And this is where I know I don't do it correctly. I just keep going in a circle until the sleeve is long enough. Technically, the correct way to do it is to like go around, chain 1, turn, to make it perfectly even, but I don't like having a seam on the sleeve, so I just go around in a circle, and then it's like barely noticeably uneven at the bottom. Actually, I'd argue it's not noticeable at all. So that's the way I do it, and like I said, all you do is go in a circle, round and round and round, in this armhole that we've made. And then I will show you how I do the ribbing, which I'm gonna do around the wrist, the bottom, and the top. I'm gonna do like a little ribbed collar type detail. For the sleeves, the only piece of advice that is really offerable, because again, it's just going around and around, is to make sure on your first go around that you count how many stitches and like jot it down somewhere. So when you do the other side, you make sure you do the exact same amount of stitches. Otherwise, one will be a little bit bigger or smaller than the other. So that's basically it. And yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna start the sleeves and we're gonna finish it up. So it is coming along. As you can see, I have one sleeve down, and there are just a couple things I wanted to run over real quick before, next thing you know it, we're done with our sweater. One, it's definitely oversized. That would be almost an understatement. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I am going to include the graph for the 80 across size in the description, but I also think I'm going to take the time to downsize it both to a 70 stitch across and a 60 stitch across per panel. So I will provide all of those different graphs in the description below. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, if you like just the fully oversized bell sleeve look, you could definitely keep these as some like wicked, no pun intended, big bell sleeves, but I am gonna cinch my sleeves like this. So that's what I'm gonna do next. And then you also could keep the collar and the bottom as is. I think it's cute as a whole. This is a whole look, but I'm also going to add a ribbed collar and some ribbing on the bottom. And those are the only two things that we have to get done. And then our spooky sweater is complete. So let's jump to the desk area, and I'm gonna show you how I take it from a massive bell sleeve like this to a cinched little cuffed, cinched balloony sleeve. Do you need more adjectives? No? Okay, then let's just get to the detailing. The first thing you want to do is measure your sleeve and jot down that measurement so you can make sure to make the other sleeve the exact same size. My sleeve was 12.5 inches from where we seamed it together. Next, I'm taking a stitch marker and placing it in the first stitch. I like to start all my sleeve details underneath the armpit, so when you're wearing it, the seams are kind of hidden. For 2 rows, I'm going to decrease into every single stitch. This is the look after 1 row of decreasing, and then I repeated decreasing into every single stitch for row 2. And here is what it looked like after row 2. I went on to do a 3rd row of decreasing every 2 stitches. So 2 normal single crochets, decreased, and that ended up being the perfect size for me. I like to do this kind of ribbing with a smaller hook, so I traded my 5.75 millimeter hook for a 4.5 millimeter hook. Start by chaining right where you left off, however long you would like the cuffs to be. I did 5 stitches plus 1 stitch to turn. Then slip stitch into the back loop of each stitch all the way down until you're back at the sleeve. Slip stitch into the next stitch on the sleeve, and that slip stitch counts as a turning chain. Turn your work, slip stitch back up the chain, back loops only for every stitch. chain 1 to turn, and repeat these steps all the way around your sleeve until you end up back at the beginning, and then you just seam up the 2 sides of the ribbing. For the collar, I'm using the 5.75 hook again, and I'm starting off by placing a row of single crochet all around the neckline, starting and ending in the back. Just like with the sleeves, start by chaining however long you would like the collar to be. I did a chain of 3 plus 1 to turn. I'm using a different ribbing here, a slip stitch on the way down, but a single crochet into the back loops on the way up. Other than the single crochet on the way up, the process is exactly the same as the sleeve ribbing. And this is the finished collar, so cute! It really brings the whole sweater together in my opinion. After this, I just repeated the same exact process, but along the bottom of the sweater for a little bit of detail along the bottom, and that is it! I hope you guys like the sweater, and if you run out to pick up the yarn now, you can definitely finish it by Halloween. All of the details on materials and the graphs will be in the description box below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!